What is up, guys? Jimmy here with another Lots Games video. I am super thrilled. In a matter of weeks, the TurboGrafx-16 Mini is going to be a real thing. It's something that many of you are going to have in your homes. And this is just crazy thinking about this because I grew up, I had a TurboGrafx-16 in my home. I had the CD attachment. I had a big library of games and Hue cards. Some of you guys watching this go, what the heck are Hue cards? But they're basically the little credit card sized games. With the TurboGrafx-16, you had more than just that. If you wanted to just have a TurboGrafx-16 basic library, you could, or you get the CD attachment. Now with the TurboGrafx-16 Mini, as many of you guys already know, it is going to actually have some CD-based games. All the games I'm talking about today, now this is just a handful of games in the library, and a handful of games that's going to be on the Mini, but all the games that I'm talking about today are games that are going to be on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. My love for this system goes way back. Growing up, my parents had me in the Boy Scouts, and I'll never forget that one of the leaders there was talking about to everyone like, oh, he worked at NEC, he worked at this technology computer company. Most people were like, oh, that's cool. Big light bulb went up for me. I said, hey, that's NEC makes the TurboGrafx-16. So after many conversations with my parents talking to this leader, needless to say, for one of the Christmases that I had as a young man, I got the TurboGrafx-16 and a bunch of games. And the cool thing about buying those games in the TurboGrafx-16 directly from NEC, I got to get the system and also the games for half off, or my parents did. And then down the road, if I wanted games, I could just talk to Dean. That's what his name was, Dean. I was able to talk to Dean and get those games for 50% off, which was amazing. So that's a little my background with the TurboGrafx-16. And again, to think that there's actually going to be a mini console for the TurboGrafx-16 is crazy, but I love it. We live in such an age. What a time to be alive. So let's get started. Now, this is just, again, a small handful of games that are going to be on the Mini. Maybe down the road I'll do another one of these videos about, because there's a lot of great TurboGrafx-16 games I love. So maybe down the road I'll do another one of these videos. Any games in the TurboGrafx-16 library or the Japanese counterpart, the PC Engine library, what are some of your favorites for those of you guys that are familiar with these games? Leave a comment in the section below. Let's get started with one of my favorite games of all time, not just on the TurboGrafx or PC Engine, but of all time. And that is Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Growing up, I simply referred to this one as Dracula X. Now, unfortunately, this game was never released outside, for the longest time, was never released outside of Japan for the PC Engine in Japan. It was never brought to the TurboGrafx-16, but it's coming. It's going to be released on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. There was a Dracula X on the Super Nintendo, which is a great, amazing game. I prefer the PC Engine version just mainly because there's other content that's not found in the Super Nintendo version. And also the soundtrack is CD quality. The soundtrack for Dracula X on the PC Engine is amazing. Now, this is a game, guys, I have to say, it is not cheap if you want to get it on the PC Engine or the Super Nintendo. And there's a few different reasons for that, but one of the main reasons is because it is so good. It is so much fun. The controls are wonderful. If you are into Castlevania in just the slightest, this is a huge no-brainer. This game kind of introduced or brought to the table, when you start the game, the option to be able to do a stage select. But more than just that, when you play Rondo of Blood, you play the game, many of these stages or areas you're in, you'll get the opportunity to kind of branch off or take a different path, which lends itself to huge replayability. So not only are you playing a really immersive, fun, responsive, great sounding, interesting Castlevania game, but you have the chance to play it again and play stages that you did not play before. Of course, the replayability is something very common today, but they kind of really upped the ante back in the day when this game was created. It was a really big deal. At the end of each stage, you have these epic boss battles, and when I played this one from beginning to end, it was definitely a memorable experience because, you know, growing up, I had the chance to beat a lot of games, but this one definitely left a huge impression. And the amazing thing is this game is going to be included on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. One of the things I am interested in about, and they might have already made an announcement of this, guys, let me know if you've already heard about this, but this Rondo of Blood or Dracula X, years back, there was a PSP game published by Konami called the Dracula X Chronicles, and on the PSP it gave you the option, if you played the game just right, it gave you the option to unlock Rondo of Blood, the PC Engine version, and it gave you the option to unlock that game. And the cool thing about that is that it translated the game from Japanese to English. You were able to, you know, go through all the menus and check out all the different items, but it did more than just that. It also gave you the option to either listen to the voice dialogue in Japanese, and also they had voice actors come in, English voice actors. So it gave you the option to either listen to the cinematics in either Japanese or English. One of the things I'm most curious about with this version that's going to be released on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini is if they're just going to do a straight up port, just, you know, oh, this is the PC Engine version, just releasing on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini, or in fact, if they're going to be releasing the version like the translation content or the translated text and the voice dialogue. Maybe it's already been announced of what's going to happen. If you guys know about this, let me know in the comment section below. But again, guys, this one is so much fun. It is so good. I definitely give my stamp of approval for this game, and it's a must play if you're thinking about picking up the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. Okay, so the next game I'm going over with you guys, this one is crazy that it's getting released on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. I'm not just saying that because I've known about this game, you know, for many, many years. The next game I'm talking to you guys about is an incredible shooter called Ginga Fukai Densetsu Sapphire. For here on, I'm just going to refer to it as Sapphire. You play Sapphire, and if you play the first stage, you're like, you know, it's set in space. You're like, oh, you know, cool, standard sci-fi themed shooter on the PC Engine. Pretty fun, pretty cool. But keep playing, and you'll see that this is not your ordinary shooter. You get into the second stage, and it's more of like a medieval fantasy themed stage where you're going along and you have like these gargoyles that transform into spaceships, and you've got like dragons popping out of nowhere, and then you get into this castle and there's serpents popping out of like these portraits. It's crazy. It's super bananas. You have like tons of like little mid-level and main level bosses, and the great thing about this game, it does give you the option for 2-player co-op, and it has the option to choose between 4 different characters in the game. It does have 2-player co-op, and depending on the character you choose and the different weapon power-ups that you have, the different character that you have, the weapon is going to react or shoot out from your ship in a variety of different ways. And again, this kind of returns to itself of replayability. I do have to say that, you know, with a lot of shooters out there, this is not the biggest or longest shooter in the world, but it is super fun, and it is crazy to think that this unique, super rare shooter is going to be included. You know, Sapphire is going to be on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. I am so thrilled about this. Okay, so next up is probably, I would say, in the top 3 or maybe top 5 of my favorite games. I know I just talked about Rondo of Blood being one of my favorite games, but this one is definitely within the top 3 or top 5. I would say probably top 3 favorite games of all time, and that is Ys Book 1 and 2. Now, growing up, you know, when I first got my TurboGrafx-16 and I had Bonks Adventure, I never had met anyone who had the CD attachment. That was something that was like $400, and it just the CD attachment. You had to get the TurboGrafx-16. The CD attachment was $400. But there was a kid at my school that had it. He's like, hey, come on over and check out Ys Book 1 and 2. No idea what he was talking about. I go over there and he plays the first like 10, 15 minutes. If you go on YouTube and play that, I mean, we're talking about like late 80s, like 1990 when this game was made. And back then that was a huge deal. You had voice acting, you had real like CD quality music, and you had this epic RPG. And Ysbook 1 and 2 was a huge game changer, and it was a franchise. And even to this day, I want to learn everything and know about every game that gets released. I absolutely adored Ys 8. And then when this one was released, it was such a huge deal. It scored very, very well with the, you know, you don't have as many reviewers out there. You know, back then there were reviewer sites, but I remember this game scored very well on EGM, and it definitely left an impression. 2 games in one. You start off humble, very humble beginnings as you continue to advance and learn what happened to the land and what the problem is, and take it upon yourself with the resources that you have to kind of make things right. And that alone is pretty amazing, but it's coupled with one of the best soundtracks of all time. And then you've got this voice acting, and man, the Ysbook 1 and 2, one of the best gaming experiences that I've ever had the opportunity to encounter. It's been remade in a variety of different ways on many different platforms, and still to this day, I just love this game to bits. And again, this is another title coming out on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini.
I know you are searching for the secrets contained within the books, and you have done well so far. I am impressed by your daring ambition. But of course, you are still defenseless against my superior powers.
Okay, so next up is a game I first encountered in arcades. And at the time, not a lot of people really played this one in the arcades. There were other games that were keeping people's attention, but I love this one, and that is Ninja Spirit. Now, I love this game. I had no idea that there was going to be a home console port, that there was going to be a console version, and I'll never forget, I was in middle school. There was a kid there with a gaming magazine. I was flipping through it, and I saw Ninja Spirit. It said it's coming out for the TurboGrafx-16, and at the time I didn't have a TurboGrafx-16, and finding out Ninja Spirit was coming out for the TG-16 I was like, holy cow, I gotta get this system. That's what kind of got the ball rolling of me being interested. And when I found out that Dean worked at NEC, I'm like, this is how I'm going to be able to play Ninja Spirit and all the other great games for this system. Ninja Spirit is a very interesting and fun action game where you go along pretty standard. You know, you've got, for each stage, you've got hundreds of ninjas, enemies gunning for you, coming for you with swords, spears. You've got meteors crashing at you. You've got various undead and magic coming at you from all directions. But what kind of makes it or puts you on a equal or above playing field is you'll get power-ups. There are these orange ninjas throughout the game. If you attack them, they'll give you different power-ups, and they will either power up your weapons, whether you use your sword or ninja stars or these kind of like explosives. They look like dynamite on a stick, and then you've got this kind of like repelling rope weapon as well. These 4 weapons, you can power up those ones, but really, and that's really good, but what kind of like puts it over the edge for kind of making you super powerful is you can get up to 2 ninja followers, or basically these shadows, where whatever action you do, whether it's an attack or a jump, they will follow your every move. So in a sense, you know, going alone can be kind of a challenge, but if you've got 1 or 2 of these ninjas, these shadows following you, it really ups the ante. Each level have these really interesting boss battles, and this is another one of these games. It isn't the longest game in the world, but there are definitely some challenging moments. If you don't know how to use the right weapons at the right time and the right power-ups on how to implement those power-ups, you'll definitely get overwhelmed very, very quickly. But oh man, this one is so much fun. I love Ninja Spirit. I'm thrilled to see that a lot of people out there who are picking up the system are going to get the chance to play this game for the very first time, because it is such a fun and exciting action game. Okay, so next up, let's talk about a game that did a whole lot for the TurboGrafx-16 as far as getting people interested and eventually buying the system. And that game is Bonks Adventure. So through the years, Mario has done a whole lot for Nintendo, and of course, Sonic did a whole lot for Sega. Now with Bonks Adventure, this was no different. I remember seeing the commercial for Bonks Adventure, and I'm like, oh man, there's dozens of levels. Look at those colorful sprites. Oh, this is going to be amazing. And when I got my TurboGrafx-16 for Christmas, my folks also bought this game. They bought Bonks Adventure, and before I opened up the system, I remember getting the square box, opened up the wrapper, and inside was Bonks Adventure. And that was the sign. I knew that if I was getting Bonks Adventure, I was also getting the TurboGrafx-16. And I remember when I had the system and I had the game, that was the only game I had at the time. I didn't get Ninja Spirit yet, because I didn't even know if they were really even going to get me the system. But I remember playing this game over and over again. The difficulty level for this first game in the series isn't that high, but it has a whole lot of charm to it. It has bonus levels or bonus games. The art direction and the concepts for the different characters are very unique and quirky. And if you have not played any of the games in the series, I think you'll have a whole lot of fun with Bonks Adventure. Bonks Revenge and the third Bonk, I'll definitely maybe talk about in a future video, but this is definitely a very fun game to play. And if any of you guys hadn't played it and you're getting the TurboGrafx-16 Mini, I'm really thrilled that you guys get the chance to play it. Okay, so next up, let's talk about a game that was quite controversial when it was released. First came out in the arcades, and I had the chance to play the arcade version, but also the one on the TurboGrafx-16, and I am talking about Splatterhouse. Now, I remember when this game was released, it was in fact a big deal, and people see the hockey mask, they're like, what the heck is this? Is this some type of like Friday the 13th game? And no, it's just like, there are similarities for sure. But in this game, you have crazy, grotesque monsters coming at you from all different directions in this really creepy, freaky, many different areas you will dive into. Luckily, you will get the chance to pick up various weapons to kind of even the playing field, in which you'll definitely need to, because these grotesque beasts and monsters, they're going to do everything they can to take you down in the worst possible way. And one of the things that people have noted in the past, which is true, was this, this really showed that, wow, I played this one in the arcade, and on the TurboGrafx, this is a great port. This is a great version. And it definitely is, and I'm really happy to see that this classic is coming to the TurboGrafx-16 Mini, and that through the years, I got to play Splatterhouse just the other day again, to kind of as I'm preparing for this video. And man, I have to say, this game still has stood the test of time. It is still really fun, and that music and some of these undead monsters are still really creepy, and I love it. And this is definitely meant to be played more than just during the Halloween season, but it's quite fantastic. Splatterhouse, definitely fun, definitely check it out. Okay, so next up is an extremely fun puzzle game. There are multiple versions of this game for the TurboGrafx-16 and the PC Engine, and I'm talking about Bomberman 94. Now, I do have to point out, Bomberman 93, which is on the TurboGrafx-16, is amazing. It is super fun. I played hours of the multiplayer with my friends. There's beautiful, colorful levels and areas you get to explore. Bomberman 94 was a PC Engine exclusive, but now it's coming out. It's going to be on the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. And this one, man, this one might even be better than Bomberman 93. You've got these little kangaroos that you could hop on that help you throughout the different stages in Bomberman. They definitely kind of up the ante or raise the bar as far as quality levels, I feel, with Bomberman 94. And this does in fact give you the option to play multiplayer. And that's what kind of Bomberman is known for, not only just having a story mode, but also multiplayer. But this is just, it's a basic formula done in a very charming way, done in a very fun and addicting way, mainly because it does definitely look very, very simple when you're laying down these bombs to take down the different enemies in the stage. But if you don't stand in just the right place at just the right time, that's it. That bomb's going to take you down. Fortunately, there'll be things in the stage that'll help you kind of withstand getting hit more than once. But you'll get these different power-ups, which are really, I don't know why it's so fun to collect these power-ups on these stages, but they are. This one's very fun. Definitely check out, guys, Bomberman 94. Okay, so the final game I'm talking about with you guys is one that's been available, or this franchise was available on many different platforms through the years, but I'm talking about New Adventure Island. Now, when this game was released on the TurboGrafx-16, it was definitely towards the end of its life cycle. You know, the TurboGrafx or the Turbo Duo was just kind of winding down, of not being promoted anymore. They were kind of almost shutting the doors pretty close to the time that New Adventure Island was being released. And this is a franchise that I remember first being introduced to in the arcades. The game starts off with a very happy way where you're there getting married, but all of a sudden your bride gets kidnapped, and you know what? You're not too happy about that. But through the different stages, I do have to say that this game has a lot of challenge to it, a lot of variety to it, and you'll get the chance to pick up various weapons. And also you've got that skateboard, which is in other games, which, you know, if you remember, whether it's in the arcade or on the NES. And on the TurboGrafx, it looks beautiful. Very colorful sprites, very simple formula. But again, things can take you down very, very quickly, where, you know, if you're not on that skateboard, if you don't have the right power up, you'll be killed instantly. And you're constantly in the area picking up fruit and other items so you can kind of regain your health. So you kind of always have to be on the move, otherwise your energy or your life will wind down, and you'll not be able to progress anymore. This is a super fun game. Definitely check it out when you pick up the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. Well, guys, there are some super fun games on the TurboGrafx-16 and PC Engine. All these games, again, are coming out in the TurboGrafx-16 Mini. And the TurboGrafx-16 and the PC Engine has a huge library. Maybe down the road I'll do another one of these videos. Tell me what some of your favorite games in the PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16 library are in the comment section below. And if you like this video, slap that thumbs up button. Subscribe to my channel if you're not yet subscribed. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.